It's Parshas Toldos. The pasuk says, "Vayomer Yaakov Mikra Kayoim as b'choyroscha li." So the structure of this pasuk is unusual because l'chare it should say Mikra li. In other words, Yaakov says Mikra Kayoim, sell as of today, as b'choyroscha, your birthright li, to me. The transaction is between the two parties, so it's Michra Li or Michra Kayoim Li. Then the question is, what is being sold? That's the B'chayroscha. So the Li seems to be out of place. The Li should have been in the beginning of the pasuk together with the Michra, and not after the B'chayroscha Li. I want to say that today's shir is dedicated to the Refuah Shalema of Reb Chaim Nochum ben Fege Rivke. Rabbi Baumel, who was a Rebbe in our yeshiva, who was wounded in the terror attack this week, and he needs a refuah shalema. There is the whole thing that he should have a refuah sanefesh, refuah saguf, ba'agola ubizman korid. Okay, so the question is, what's the michra kayoim as b'chayroscha li? You know, the Ibn Ezra says that this the fact that Yaakov wanted to buy the Bechora. What was the Bechora about? So the Ibn Ezra says, "V'habechora sheyikach pi shnayim b'memoin aviv," that he should have a double Yerusha. V'yesh oimrim sheyesh lebechora le'olam maila al hatzoir loko miponov l'shorsoi keben la'ab. That a Bechora has a maila that the younger brother needs to give him kavod and stand up for him. To serve him like a son serves a father. The Radak says, like this Yesh Oimrim, and he elaborates, he says, V'habechora lahadroi u'lechabdoi v'loku miponov lefi shehoyo bechor, lefi shehoyo bechor v'hu lo hoyo roi lekak. Since Esau was the bechor, and he wasn't worthy of being the bechor, v'hoyo koshe be'einov lechabed odom kamohu. It was difficult for Yaakov to be mechabed a person like this. The minig oilam was to be mechabed a bechor, and therefore Yaakov couldn't refrain from being mechabed Esau as long as Esau is the bechor. And since it was kosher be'einov to be mechabed a rasha like Esau, therefore he bought the bechor from Esau. According to this, Yaakov's buying of the Bechora wasn't that he wanted the Bechora for himself. He didn't want Esau to be the Bechor. So therefore, it's not Michrali. It's not really about selling it to me. If there would have been a third brother, let's say, Yaakov would be okay with the Bechora going to the third brother. So it's not about Michrali. It's about Michra Kayoim as Bechoyroscha. Since I'm the only brother, so Li. But the point that the pasuk is getting across is that it's not about Yaakov getting the Bechora for himself, but about him bringing about that Esau should lose the Bechora. Rashi says, "Lefisha ha'avoda b'Bechoros," that we're talking about avodas, karbonos, avoda b'Bechoros. Omar Yaakov ein rosha ze kedai sheyakriv karbonos laKadosh Baruch Hu. Here again, it could be that it wasn't that Yaakov wanted it for himself. Even if he would want it for himself, if Esau would be worthy of it, he wouldn't take it away. He wouldn't. But so the point was that Ein Rosha Zeh Kedai Sheyakriv Karbonos LaKadosh Baruch Hu. So the main point was that Esau is disqualified, and therefore it needs to be taken away from Esau, and therefore it's Michra Kayoim as Bechoyroscha. And the Li is like an afterthought. But the main point is the Michra Kayoim as Bechoyroscha. Now, this that Rashi says that we're talking about the Avodah, and he doesn't want to learn that it's about the Yerusha of Pishnayim, or it's about the Lechabdoi Ulahadroi like the other Mefarshim. I would say maybe that's because it says further on, Vayived Esau es Abchora. Esau spurned the Bechora. Now, if we're talking about the covet, we're talking about the Yerusha Pishnayim, so it could be that Hine Anoichi Hoylech Lamos is a reason that he wouldn't care enough to hold on to it, because he's going to die anyway. But it wouldn't be a reason for Vayivez Esau Vesabchora. Why would he spurn the Bechora? So therefore Rashi learns that it's about the Avoide, that, and therefore the Hoylech Lamos is a reason that he was Mavaza the Bechora, as we will see. And according to Rashi, we can say the pasuk says in the beginning of Ovadia about Esau Bozui Ata Ma'oid, that Esau is a Bozui, he's despised, and that might be because the pasuk says in Shmuel Ki Mechabdai Achabed Uboizai Yikolu. So somebody that's Mavaze the Avoidis Hamokim, he's Avada Bechlal Boizai, and therefore he becomes a bozui, ata ma'oid, boizai yikolu. Now there's a Gemara in the first parak of Psachim Mandaf Gimel Amud Aleph, where the Gemara says, Anu tlose kahani. There were 3 kahanim. Gad amaluhu higiyani kapul. So they divided up the kochim for the kahanim to eat, and one said, I got like a bean. That's how small my portion was. V'chad Omar higiyani kizayis. V'chad Omar higiyani kizonov halato'o, like the tail of some creature. Botku achrov. So they checked after the one that used the expression higiyani kizonov halato'o, and umatzu by shemetz psul. So pashtus, that means that they found that he wasn't the kosher kohen. There was some kind of a psul in his yichus. So the Gemara asks, "V'ha'ein boitkin min hamizbeach u'lamayla." Rashi says, "Im shimesh b'mizbeach ein tzorich livdoik lamayla hemenu. De'im loy hoya roi lekohuna loy hoya menichanayse l'shamesh." So we don't check into the yichus of a kohen that's already being oived, and therefore the Gemara is bothered. Why were they botku achrov? So the Gemara says, "Loy teime shemetz psul ela eme shachatz psul." What's shachatz psul? It wasn't that they checked into his genealogy. They hu atzmoi hoyo gas ruach umevaze koche shomayim ve'enoi ro'ui l'shamish kidekaim alon b'menoches avoido hamesuro levnei aharon kohen she'enoi moide bekulon av b'megune shebehen ein lo chelik b'kuhuna. A kohen that is enoi moide in any avoida, even the meguna shebehem, is considered he becomes puzzle. He becomes puzzle for the avoid. He becomes puzzle for the avoid. So it's talking. So this is a special umrah that we find in avoidus kohuna, that the kohen has to accept and he has to respect and he has to consider worthy, even the meguna of the avoidus hakahuna. Why is that? It could be that the root of this is because the avodah originally was Esau's. He was the bechor, and only because vayived Esau es ha-bechora, he lost the bechora, he lost the avodah. So now, and that's how it came to Yaakov, and from him it came to the Bnei Aaron ha-koyanim. So a kohen that's einay moide ba'avodah av b'meguna shebahem, so he's being nichshal in vayivez Esau v'sabchora, and therefore he's undermining his whole schus, our schus over Esau to be doing the avodah, and therefore the kohen she'enoi moide avodah amsur l'bnei aharon kohen she'enoi moide b'kulon av b'meguna shebahem ein lo chelik b'kohuna. And it would seem that this idea is expressed in this week's Haftarah, where it says, Masa dvar Hashem el Yisrael b'yad malochi. Ahavti eschem am Hashem. Hashem said, I loved you. V'amartem b'meh ahavtonu. Haloi. So, and the Rebbe Shalom says, Haloi ach Esav l'Yaakov v'oyav es Yaakov. So, what are you asking? B'meh ahavtonu. Avada, I expressed my love to you because it was ach Esav l'Yaakov v'oyav es Yaakov. And then the Pesukim go on to say, Ben Yechabed Ov, the Eved Adonov. So I ask you, says the Rebbeinu Shalom, Av Oni Aye Kvoidi, V'im Adonim Oni Aye Moiroi, Omar Hashem Tzvokos, Lochem HaKoyanim, Boize Shmi, V'amartem, Bameh Bozinu Es Shemecha. Magishim Al Mizbechi, Lechem Megoyol, V'amartem B'mega Al Nucha, V'omrechem Shulchan Hashem Nivzehu, V'chisagishun Iver, and so on. So that's the idea. This is a toichecha to the Kohanim Boizei Shmi. And the Rebbeinu Shalom is saying, Haloyach Esav Yaakov. Esav and Yaakov were brothers. V'oyev es Yaakov. Why? Because Esav was Vayives, and Yaakov was Makshiv the Avodah. But you Kohanim that are Boizei Shmi, you lose your whole connection to the Avodah. And therefore the Hakdama to this Musar is Haloi Ach Esav Liyaakov. But l'chara, we find it hard to understand how Esav, who was raised in the home of Yitzchak, came to be someone who was Vayives Esav Esabchara. I mean, but you know, in the Zohar in this week's Parsha on Daf Kuf Lamed Zayin, the Zohar is marich that the Vayehav Yitzchak as Esav is based on the fact that he was Minoi Shel Yitzchak, the Zohar says, because he was Shayach to the Midah of Gvura, of Yira. This idea really, it says in the Medrash says that Avram Yotza Mimenu Yishmael, Yitzchak Yotza Mimenu Esav. Yaakov was Mitasei Shleima. Now, Yotza Mimenu really means that he exited the world of Avram. He exited the world of Yitzchak. But it also tells us that where Yishmael got to and where Esav got to is Mimenu. In other words, it comes from the Midah of Avram. It comes from the Midah of Yitzchak. Yishmael is created by Avram's Midah. In other words, Avram's Midah taken the wrong way. That's Yishmael. Yitzchak's Midah taken the wrong way is Esav. And that's what it says in Sforim, that Yishmael is the psoilus, is the waste of the Midah of Ahava, and Esav is the psoilus, the waste of the Midas Ha-Yira. And that's why Avraham Yotza Mimenu Yishmael. You know that in Chazal it says that when HaKadosh Baruch Hu took the Torah to the Ummah Ha'olam, so Esav refused to accept it because he asked Maksiv Ba, and he was told Loi Sirtzach. And Yishmael refused to accept it because he asked Maksiv Ba, and he was told Loi Sinov. You know that Ritzicha is the psoilus of the Midas HaGvura, the Midas HaYira, whereas Niyuf is the psoilus of the Midas HaChesed, Chesed Hu, the psoilus of the Midas HaAhava, and therefore Esav is Shaykh to Ritzicha, and Yishmael is Shaykh to Niyuf. The fact that Esav is Shaykh to the Midah of Gvura and Yira is mefurish in this parsha, because it says, Vayomer Esav, Hine onoichi hoylech lomus, veloma ze li b'chor. So Rashi says, Omar Esav, ma tiva shel avoidazu, Omaloi kama az horois, ve'oinshin umisois tluyim bo. Ka'oiso sheshoninu, elu hein shebemisa, suyayayin u'pruei roish. Omar, ani hoylech lomus al yoda. This is going to kill me. I'm going to die through the avodah. And Cain, ma chayfetz libo. So you see that Esav, that was raised in the home of Yitzchak, avada, he was machshiv the avodah. He didn't take it lightly at all. Adirabah, he was very machshiv the avodah. He was afraid of it. Hine onoichi hoylech lomus al yoda. And this fear of Esav, that's the psoilus of pachad Yitzchak hoyoli. The midah of Yitzchak is pachad, but pachad in a constructive way. And when this pachad is taken in a destructive way, it paralyzes, and it brings a person to despair, and therefore he says, Hine anoichi hoylech lomus, v'loma ze li b'chora, hine anoichi hoylech lomus al yoda. As Chazal tell us, the Gemara in Yoima Daf Ayin Beis, that zocha nasis loy sam chaim. In other words, the Rambam says, Heichi aderech la'ahavosoi v'yirosoi. How does a person come to Avas Hashem, and to Yiras Hashem? He says, B'shoshi yisboinen ha'odam b'ma'asav u'bruav ha'nifloim ha'gdoilim v'yireh mehem chochmosoi she'ein lo erech v'loi keitz miyad hu oyev u'mishabeach u'mefoer u'mis'ava taiva gdoila leida Hashem ha'godol k'mo she'omar David tzamo nafshi le'lekim le'kel choy u'kishemechashev badvorim ha'elu atzmon. When he's experiencing this tremendous ava, which comes from the hisbonenus in the Rebbeinu Shalom's greatness, the yira, the yefached, the yoidea, shehu briok tanosh shvelo va'afelo. He's a lowly, dark creature. Oimed bedas kala mu'uta lefnei tmim deyos k'may she'omar David ki eresh shamecha masi etzboisecha etc. Mo enoish kises kirenu. But in spite of the fact that a person recognizes his being a briok tanosh shvelo afelo, a lowly, dark creature, nevertheless, he doesn't fall into a yush. But as the Tana de Be'eliyahu Rabbah says, Samachti mitoich yir osi, that my yira empowers me and it brings me to simcha. As the pasuk says in Mishlei, Yiras Hashem toisif chayim. How's that? You know, there's a lashon in the Sefer HaTanya, Perek Lamed Gimel. He writes, V'hinei kamo gdoila simchas hedyoit u'shval anoshim b'hiskarvusoi l'melech basav adom hamisach sein v'dor itoi imoi bebeisoi. That a simpleton, if the king comes to visit him and he stays in his home, I mean, he's so excited, he's so happy. V'kal v'choymer le'en kates l'kirvas v'yiras melech malchei amlochem HaKadosh Baruch Hu u'kediksiv ki mi hu ze asher orev liboy logeshes elai na'um Hashem. And nevertheless, the Rebbeinu Shalom maintains a relationship with us, and he takes an interest in us, and he is with us. And he says, "Val zeh tiknu litein shevach v'hoidoya l'shmo yizborach b'chol boiker v'loy ma'ashrenu ma'toiv chalkeinu ma'yofa yerushaseinu." That this is the idea. Adarabah, in a sense, the smaller a person feels, the more excited he is about his relationship with the Rebbeinu Shalom. So this is a yira that's empowering, and it encourages a person to do more. But that's the zocha nases loy sam chayim. But on the other hand, there's a loy zocha nases loy samha mavis. In other words, that's the yira psula, the yotza mimenu, the yotza mimenu Esau, which is destructive, and it paralyzes the person, and that's the hine anoichi hoylech lomus v'lama ze li bechora. Now, Esau sells the bechora because he feels inadequate. He feels that he can't do it. He doesn't feel that he can do the job. He feels that hine anoichi hoylech lomus. But after a person gives up something, he doesn't want to live with in a conflict that he gave up something good, and therefore he convinces himself that it's not important b'chlal, and it has no chashivas. Therefore, after Esau sells the bechora, the pasuk says, "Vayivez Esau es habechora." In other words, he was vayoichal, vayesh, vayokom, vayelech. That's like the pasuk says in Yeshaya, right? So he's a hoylech lamus, and he gives everything up, and he tells himself that what he gave up is worth nothing, and therefore in order to calm himself down, in order to overcome the discomfort that he has, mikoyach his selling the bechora. Now the Medrash says, Vayozed Yaakov nozid, Omar loy ma tivoy shel nozid zeh. Right? He made that stew of lentils. So he asked Yaakov, what is this nazir about? Omaloi shemeis oisoi zoken, that Avram died and Yitzchak and Yaakov made this Nizid Adashim as a Sudas Havro'ah to feed his father Yitzchak as after he buries Avram. Amaloi ba'oisoi zokein pogo midas adin. That great sage, the midas adin, was pegei on him. Amaloi hein. Amar and Cain loy matan schar v'loy tzchias hamesim. If so, I mean, there's nothing. There's no matan schar and there's no tzchias hamesim. V'ruach hakodesh tzoivachas, and the Medrash quotes the pasuk in Yirmiyah, al tivku lameis. Don't cry for the one that died. V'loy sonudu loy. Ze Avram. Don't feel so bad that Avram died. B'chu bochoy lahoylech. Ze Esau. Because Esau is the hoylech lamos. That's whom you should cry about. Not about Avram, who died, but Esau, who's dying. He's the hoylech lamos. So when Esau was exposed to the finite nature of man, when he saw that even Avram Avinu died, so he sees him, so he was miyayish, and he sees himself as a hoylech lamos, that life is just a journey towards death. But the truth is, altiv kula mace, because even though the mace is mace when his day comes, that's he can live an accomplished life, and he can access eternity. Whereas somebody who lives a life of hoylech lamos and therefore gives up the avodah and loses his connection with the Rebbeinu Shalom, that his pachad brings him to give everything up, he's the hoylech lamos, and that's the b'chu bochoy lahoylech. So Esau, that was kofer b'tchias hamesim, as it says over here, the Gemara says in Sanhedrin, who kofer b'tchias hamesim l'fichach lo yeh lo chelik b'tchias hamesim. In other words, the kofer b'tchias hamesim is really a hoylech lamos, but it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. In other words, he sees himself as a hoylech lamos, and therefore he is a hoylech lamos. Whereas somebody that's a maimin b'tchias hamesim has tchias hamesim. Now this Nizid Adashim was prepared lahavrois boyes ha'ovel, and this Nizid Adashim served as the thing with which Yaakov buys the bechorah from Esau. Probably it's not a coincidence. But the Sudas Havra, that there's a halacha that we're makpid, that the Avelim, the first Suda, should be dafka mishel acherim. They should be fed by others. What is this about? Because the Avelim are just coming back from the Kfura, and that experience could bring them to a Yush. And it could weaken their Heifetz B'chayim. So we want to expose them now to the eternal dimension of life, and that's the human capacity to do chesed, because that's where we are nitzchiyim, and therefore we want those avelim that were exposed to the dead body, we want them now to be exposed to a chesed, that their neighbors prepare food for them, because that shows them the nitzchiyus of life, that even though we're not here forever, but we can do things that connect us with eternity. And now it could be that the Kohanim are aser lihitame lameis, and that's because oiz v'chedva b'mkoimai, the avodah has to be done mitachin and simcha, and therefore Esau, who's a hoylech lamos, he loses the avodah, and therefore from now on the avodah is shaykh to Yaakov Avinu. That's a loimet, and therefore the Nizid Adashim, which was prepared for a Sudas Havra, which comes to be Mavri, the Avelim, that are in a depressed mood, which comes from the Hoylek Lamos, Dafke this Nizid Adashim, that expresses the eternal value of human life, where a person could connect with the Mahu Rachum Af Ato Hayei Rachum, Mahu Chanun Af Ato Hayei Chanun. This Nezid Adashim is with which the Bechorah is taken away from Esau and given to Yaakov, taken away from the Hoylech Lamos and given to the Yaakov Avinu Lo Meis. This is exactly what the Nezid Adashim is about. So Ritzicha is really a bizui and a chilul of the Tzelem Elokim. As the pasuk says, "Shoifech dam ha'adam ba'adam damo yishafech ki b'tzelem Elokim asa esa adam." And therefore, Esau, that was mavaza the b'chora, because he lost faith in the greatness of human spirits. He's a hoylech lamas. He's kaifer b'tchias hamesim. He doesn't accept the Torah that says lo sitzach, because somebody that has no respect for his own tzelem Elokim, Avada, he's mezalzel in the tzelem Elokim of others, and therefore he's like Sirzach. This is all the psilis of the Midas Hayira, which is about seeing myself as a bria ktana shvela afela, but at the same time, in the zacha sense, empowers me, but in the loy zacha sense, it's loy zacha nasis loy sama moves, and therefore he becomes a bozuyata ma'oid. It's the self bizui, and the kaifer b'tchias hamesim ein loy chelik b'tchias hamesim. On the other hand, the koyanim, who are in charge of preserving the covet of the tzelem Elokim, because their avodah is rooted in the buying of the b'chorah al yedei the Yaakov Avinu loy meis from the hoylech lamus, and that's why they are aserli tamei lemeisim, and that's why a kohen that's a boize shmi loses the avodah. So therefore, by koyanim we find that a kohen shahara ges hanefesh lo yisa es kapov, because ritzicha undermines the inyan of kohuna, because the inyan of kohuna is the covet of the tzelem Elokim. You know that the Gemara and Kedushin says in the Maskana and the Avchav Gimel, Omar Rav Huna Berezi B'Shua Hani Kani Shluche de Rachmonim. The Gemara had a suffix if Koyanim are Shluche de Rachmone or Shluche Didan. When they do the avodah, are they our representatives or are they the representatives of the Rebbeinu Shalom? So Rav Huna Berezi B'Shua says Hani Kahani Shluche de Rachmonim. They are Shluchim of the Rebbeinu Shalom. The Isol Kedai Toch Shluche Didan. If you're going to say that the Koyanim are functioning as our shluchim, mi ikemidi, can it be that is there something that anan loy matzinan avdinan ve'inu motzu avdi? Could it be that they can do for us b'shlichus something that we ourselves can't do? We can't bring karbonos, we Yisraelim. So how could we appoint a shliach to do for us what we can't do ourselves? So it must be that they are shluchim derachmon. Tosfos over there says, he doesn't understand, because in the Dorim Daf Lamed Hey there's an iboy in the Gemara. Hani kahani shlucha di daninhu or shlucha di rachmona v'loy pashtinon. The Gemara blibes with a suffix, and over here in Kedushin it seems like it's a klora maskane that they are shluchi di rachmona. So Tosfos says in a second teretz that yeshloim adahosam hachi kami boyalei, that in Nedorim this is our shaila. Hani kahani shluchid rachmona davkeninu v'loy shluchid didan bechlal. In the Dorim, the Gemara was mesupik. If they are shluchid rachmona only and they're not shluchid didan at all, oidilma havi nami shluchid didan, or maybe besides for being shluchid rachmona, they're also shluchid didan. V'nafkimin ikoyen makrev shalelo das bayim. So Tais is saying that the Gemara in Kedushin and the Gemara in Nedorim are not talking about the same thing. The Gemara in Nedorim knows that Kahanim have to be Shluchid Rachmana, but the Gemara is thinking maybe they're also Shluchid Didan, and that wasn't Nifshat. But the Gemara in Kedushin is talking about whether they're only Shluchid Didan or only Shluchid Rachmana, and in that we say that it can't be that they're only Shluchid Didan because mi ikemidi. But the Tosfos is really shver to understand. The Svar of Mi Kemidi, B'chara, says that they can't be our shluchim. how could we still say that they're both Shluchei Didan and Shluchei Rachmana? The Mi'i Committee L'chara goes against the idea that they're our Shluchim in any which way, even together with being Shluchei Rachmana. So Reb Shimon of the Shari Yoshe, he says that only if the appointment of the Shliach is our appointment is there a problem with Mi'i Committee. But if we say that the Rachmana appointed them as our Shluchim, so they can function as our Shluchim. And that's what Tosfos is saying, that the Gemara in Nedarim is considering that the Rachmana appoints them as Shluchei Didan, and therefore, this overcomes the problem of mi ikemidi danan loy matzinan avdinan v'inhu motzu avdi. Now, it's talking to say that bemis on the simple level, we say anan loy matzinan avdinan. We can't do what the kohen could do, and therefore we can't make them shluchim. But on a higher level, be'emes v'atem tiuli mamleches koyanim v'goy kodesh. In every yid, there's a nekuda of kahuna. The Balaturim on the pasuk v'atem tiuli mamleches koyanim, he said, brings the medrash. Ilu zachu Yisrael hayu kulam koyanim gedolim. Ula'osid lovay tachzer lahem. Shenema v'atem koyanei Hashem tikra'u. But often that on a certain level, we are matzinon avdinon. And when the Torah appoints the kohen to be our shluchim, it really means that the Rebbeinu Shalom through the kohen is being megala to us that we have a capacity that we're not even aware of. We see ourselves as loy matzinon avdinon, but when the kohen does the avodah for us, he's megala within us more than we are aware of. And that's Sifsei Koyen Yishmeru Das Torah Yavakshu Mipiu, because the Malamdei Torah are also Shluchei Rachmana, Ki Malach Hashem Tzvokaisu. But the tafkid of the Malamdei Torah is be'emes to reveal within the Loimdim abilities that they have, a capacity that they have that they're not aware of themselves. That's the appointment of the Rachmana, of the Kahani, to make them Shluchei Didan. Memela, this madrega of Kohuna, which is the madrega of the kovid of Netzelem Elokim, the hepech of Hoylech Lomos, the gilui of Tchias HaMesim, that is really shaykh to every yid. Va'atem tihu li ma'amleches koyanim v'goy kodesh. Okay, Rabbi Say, I want to wish you all a guten chodesh.